Hey gang, a couple of years ago I gave you a video about relatively unknown one record having hardcore guy from New York with a killer single named K-Boss. Well, how about another video about a hardcore one record New York guy who only had one awesome single named Boss K? No relation, but here he is. Came out in 1990 on Street Jam Records. Kind of an outlier, which we'll get into in a minute. But this guy, young, I would say he's like 16, 15, something like that. He even talks about being a juvenile on this record. But there's no crisscross, PG-13, or even like Kwame special ed kind of stuff. Like, this is definitely hardcore street stuff. Kind of really reminds me of like Big L before that kind of stuff. Like, not like he's the precursor of gangster rap. Obviously, NWA and the Ghetto Boys had been around for a couple years by now. And it goes back, gangster rap goes back to like School AD and early Ice-T records. So I'm not saying that. But he's definitely a precursor to that whole sort of New York, Queensbridge criminology and all that kind of stuff that really took over the airwaves in the mid-90s. Again, Big L and all that kind of stuff, like AZ, The Firm, like all that sort of stuff that really took over New York rap. He's kind of ahead of that curve. Not that it's necessarily strictly gangster rap, I guess you could say. The song is called Rapper's Nightmare, and it's just a one song with instrumental on the flip, which in a way is just about being a hardcore MC. But definitely when you listen to the lyrics, there's a lot of street talk, a lot of gangster talk that, again, pretty atypical for 1990. Like even Cool G Rap was still mostly kind of doing like, men at work kind of stuff at this point. Or maybe even sort of streets of New York, but not so much the real mafioso kind of stuff. So again, this is Boss K's only record on Street Jam Records. Street Jam Records is basically a spinoff of Street Beat Records, which is basically a spinoff of Delmar International, which is all owned and operated by the guy who produced this record, Delmar Donnell, who's a really kind of old school guy. His roots go way back, like to the Super Rappin' 3. He put out Spider D's first record in 1980, and even a lot of non-hip hop stuff, like kind of R&B, funk, soul kind of stuff, which he continued to do throughout the years. He's always sort of been like 50% hip hop, 50% other stuff, which is one reason why this is kind of an outlier for him, because even when he does hip hop, he's doing more kind of fun stuff. Like he calls himself Casanova Del Mar, and I think Dr. Mix is also one of his aliases. I don't know if that's 100% true, but that's my pet theory. And again, going back to like Super Rappin' kind of 3, like he's not doing hardcore, gritty street gangster rap, except for sort of this one example. And even the production style on this record is really kind of hardcore. It's really dope. It uses the same Marvin Gaye sample that DJ Jazzy Jeff used for Touch of Jazz, and he really made that famous and sounded incredible there. Sounds really dope here too, with like really kind of hardcore bass lines, strict beats, and a little bit of Chill Rob G's The Power, or maybe the Snaps Power, who knows? I mean, it's the same sample. So it's a killer hardcore track. Again, it's not necessarily gangster rap. Like a lot of it is called Rapper's Nightmare. It's based on the LL Cool J vocal sample, I'm a rapper's nightmare, I crush my opponents, from Bigger Endeavor. And there's also a little bit of Dana Dane singing Nightmare in there. But so, it's basically sort of being about just like a killer, super dope hardcore MC. But when you listen to it, there's a lot of kind of really nice street stuff in the lyrics too. So that's not the kind of stuff you expect to hear from Delmar or anybody on his label. And again, Boss K himself kind of disappeared after this, and who knows what happened to him, who knows who he was. We know his name is Sean K. Edmondson because that's the writing credits, but that's really all we know. Well, not really. We know from just listening to the song, he shouts out his posse, the Switchblade Crew, on 45th Street, which places him, 45th Street is one of those streets, like all of them, that goes way all the way across New York, so he could be in like Hell's Kitchen, or he could be in Times Square, right? And it's just an all-around dope record. He's coming hard, but he's also kind of nice lyrically. He's not just like one of those gruff street guys. Like, he's kind of clever, but not too clever. Being 1990, I probably thankfully puts him ahead of like a lot of the kind of later 90s punchline kind of stuff. Like, there's sort of references to like, I'm like Amadeus, but I don't wear the wig. Like, that's about as like punchliney as he gets. It's really just kind of hardcore stuff, either in the street talk mode or just in the hardcore MC mode. He kind of does both and blends them together. And it's kind of a long record, but his verse is almost like a single verse with a really nice hook, being cut up. And then like his vocal part ends at like the 2-minute mark, and then the beat just kind of rides for another 2.5 minutes with, some vocal samples mixed in, and a little bit of light scratching. There's some scratching, but it's not like he's going nuts on the turntables. I don't know who does that. Is that Delmar? Maybe that's Boss K's uncredited DJ. Maybe there's a whole other producer who actually came up with the beat and it wasn't Delmar. Who knows? All we know is Boss K is clearly doing the rapping and he gets writing credits, and Delmar gets production credits. Like, he really kind of reminds me of Jinx the Juvie back when he was working with and probably being ghostwritten by Cool G Rap. So it's just a really killer record, and I wanted to share it with you guys. So no more, I'm just going to play you some clips of it. And if any of you guys know anything about this record, or about Boss K at all, what happened to him, where he is, leave a comment or something, let us know, because it's an amazing record, and it's kind of really surprising and disappointing that it's his only record.